Hey, did you know that my heart can't beat
Oh.
unless you tell it to?
Well, I hope it keeps beating then.
Tell it! Keep telling it!
I'm thinking it always.
Anyway, so whilst we had COVID, we tried to do as much watching of stuff as we could, but I had my kids. Otherwise, we would have watched everything.
Well, we did watch a lot.
We watched a lot
of family movies.
Yes, we did watch a lot of family movies. And liked a lot of them.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about on this channel.
No, it's not.
We are here to talk about all the movies and whatnot we watched. First being My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To, which you can tell Kaylee was really into. And it's currently streaming on Shudder. And it's about a family that has to keep another family member alive by getting them blood.
Yeah.
The movie is very slow. Okay, I'll say this. I think that the movie is well made. I think the movie looks fine. I think the acting is all good. I think that the story... I feel like the filmmakers made the film they intended to, right? I think this is exactly what they set out to make. And I think that this film will 1000% for sure have its audience. And there will be people who think this is great. And I'm not here to say it's bad and that I hated it. I didn't. This is a movie that I thought was fine. I felt like it had potential, but it was always just missing something and always just missing the mark on something. Like everything like would get going somewhere, certain scenes, the whole film would be like scene after scene after scene of like, okay, this is getting halfway there. Like I like this acting, I like kind of what they're setting up, I like the, you know, the family dynamic to a degree, but it never like got to anywhere that I wanted it to in any of those scenes, whether it was like the relationship of the family, which I really needed to buy into. And it's not that I didn't buy into it. I bought into it enough. That's why this is a fine film. It's like, it's kind of boring. It was okay. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I'd never watch it again. But it's like everything just left me feeling ho-hum.
Yeah.
And kind of hollow.
Yeah.
And I actually, you know what? I felt like the characters in this movie while I was watching it. It was just kind of like they kind of talked like
going
this.
through the motions.
And everything was kind of like the main character's half-assedly in this. Like he doesn't want to be out killing people. He's kind of just there.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was me. Yeah. I was like, I don't really want to watch this.
But I'm going to.
But I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think, I don't know. The film is really... It's really slow, and that's not, I think, the reason why I don't like it. It's not, because there's plenty of films that I think are slow that, you know, do a good job, but it felt like all the climactic points just sort of were, like, built up and then kind of plateaued or even went down.
Sure.
So I felt like nothing happened, even though things do happen in the movie. And there's not a lot of dialogue, to be honest. The dialogue that is there is, like you said, like really soft-spoken and quiet, and there's, like, very little, if no music, really. It's, you know, the soundtrack isn't very strong, but for whatever reason, like, I felt like we were wasting our time when we were watching it a little bit. It was like, and we followed it up with Super Deep, too, which, just like the comparison, you know, in the tone of those two movies, like, so much happens in Super Deep, and in this, it was just nothing happens.
This was super shallow.
Super shallow, yeah. But I agree with you. I think the acting is all great, and you know the characters are believable. It is like kind of a realistic take on a vampire story, I suppose. Yes. But there's not really any, you know, explanation for, you know, what one of the characters is actually afflicted with.
Which is fine.
Which is fine, but that's the thing too, is I felt like there wasn't a lot, like I didn't know where any of them were really coming from. You know, like we kind of just start in the, not even the middle, but towards the end of their story, right? Where they've already been living together and doing this for a while. And it's just kind of like, I would have liked to have known what happened before.
Well, two things. Number one, when I said that's not a knock towards it, you slow being like a negative, what I mean by that is that it's not a knock in general. Like, slow is not a knock, right? This movie's slow is a knock. So I want to kind of clarify what I meant there. This is a knock that this film is too slow. But in general, too slow is not a knock. I've watched plenty of slow films. There Will Be Blood is one of my go-to examples of a movie that's uber slow, but I loved every second of. Anyway, second point being is that this film is just such a fucking downer.
Yeah.
Like and I think that's one of the things that hurts this film as well, is like, there's never a moment in this movie where I connect with anybody, because in order for this film, like, okay, there's instances in the family within the film is really into karaokeing, right? And like having fun. And I get it. Their lives suck. But that kind of makes the viewing experience suck. And it's not that films can't pull this off, because I've definitely watched movies that are almost all downer, with no levity of any sort, and I'm like, oh, I love it. So why those films are able to pull it off and this one isn't, not 100% sure. If anything, I guess it's just that I don't want to blame the performances per se, but there's something being lost here to where I'm not connecting to anybody. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that I'm just, maybe it doesn't need levity. Maybe it doesn't need fun moments. Maybe that's not what it is. But it's just such this somber tone in these characters that I find to be painfully boring. Yeah. That I'm just not connecting with them in any way, shape, or form. And maybe certain actors bring with them some kind of built-in, like, charisma from past, performances, maybe even. You watch something like Blue Valentine, or, there's been a few Ryan Gosling movies where they're uber slow and quiet and his character doesn't do a lot, but it's Ryan Gosling, so I'm just like, I'm in from the get.
Maybe that has something to do with it, but we talked also, this film doesn't really have a whole lot of style.
None.
Because I think
Good
like
point.
the Neon Demon is a movie that's a huge downer.
Good point.
But there's so many shots that are just beautiful and very visually pleasing, and in this movie, it's just like, it's like real life, and like that's why, what you said in the beginning, I think the filmmakers intended it to be this way, so I think they were very successful, and I think that there are people, like you said, that will really enjoy this movie, and that's great. But for me, it was just, too dull, and I mean that like on a variety of levels, like the way it looked, the acting, the sound design, kind of all of it was just very dull.
It's funny to me that I couldn't come up with the thing that it was, which is the lack of style, when I was the one who pointed that out originally.
It's okay.
And just completely forgot about it. But yeah, we watched this like a week ago.
Yeah.
But that was my knock. I'm glad you remembered that I said that, because that is the issue with the movie.
Yeah.
The movie is dull and boring, and it has no style. And you're right. It's filmed like Blue Valentine or other Gosling movies, or The Neon Demon or something like that, where it's like, if The Neon Demon was done flat like this,
oh my gosh,
it would not be anywhere near as good, if good at all.
Yeah.
The style does elevate it dramatically. It's what gives the film pizzazz. It's what gives the film life. And this film, much like its, character that they're trying to take care of, is kind of lifeless. And that's the intention, though. That's why I'm saying I'm not going to knock the film for landing what it went for. I know that this is what they want. They want the realism. They want the like slower, somber tone, because these are slower, somber tone people. The style fits them. Like all that stuff. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's one of those instances where it's like, the film's successful. I'm not knocking the film, Like, it is what it is. I just didn't like it, right? Like, there's been people you've been around that people are like, what's your problem with them? And it's like, I don't really have anything wrong with them per se.
You just don't
like
them.
them.
Yeah, that's just...
They're not doing anything wrong.
Sure.
They're being them. I just don't like them. Right? Like, the way that they're being is not something that I like, and there's nothing wrong about them. Right. They're not a bad person. They're not talking shit to me. They're trying to be nice. I just don't fucking like them.
That's like
and it's
anything
one of these
in
movies.
Life. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's people, it's movies, it's books, it's music. Like, there's just always something that you can be like, okay, I can recognize that it's fine, like, it's good, but I just don't, it doesn't fit with me. And this movie is also really a very subtle horror movie.
Yes.
Very, very subtle.
Too subtle.
Too subtle, almost. Like, it doesn't really feel like a horror movie to me.
It has horror
it
elements.
has elements to it.
It's a drama, first and foremost.
It feels way more like a drama/horror.
Drama
first. ...
Dot.
Horror in small print.
Yeah. Drama.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as with any of these kinds of movies, that's why horror is such a blanket genre, right? Is like you can incorporate horror elements, right? What things would be considered horror? Vampires are always considered horror, but nobody's going to consider Twilight a horror movie, right? But you can always insert horror aspects almost into anything. I mean, there's a lot of films, like a good vast majority of genres usually incorporate horror elements.
Yeah.
You know, here and there, but it's whether or not it's played for horror. And in instances it's played for horror, for sure. Mm-hmm. And there's enough here for me to consider this a horror movie, for sure, because there's scene after scene after scene of that taking place.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
The murder, the blood drinking, all that stuff. Yeah. I find it's enough.
Sure,
but the film's so fucking slow and so dramatic. And that's another thing, right? Is that I think that's another problem with the movie. Is that it's a primarily dramatic film with not a lot of drama.
Right, that's what I was saying about like the
it's just
climaxes.
Meandering.
Yeah.
There are moments where it's supposed to be dramatic, and I never felt it. I never got there. Like, there's something that deals with a hooker in this. And that stuff should have been really gut-wrenching.
Sure, yeah.
Should have been a punch to the gut. It should have been this moment for really high theatrics and drama, dramatic sequences. It just never gets there.
No.
Like, the characters' reactions, all that stuff are kind of just ho-hum. Like everything else in this movie, it's like, where's the fucking passion?
Yeah.
Where's what's getting me drawn into this moment and making me care that then speaks to the moment later in the film that makes the character do what they do. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, there has to be those moments where I then go, okay, this gives so much more of an impact to what occurs later. It's not there, so I don't give a fuck. When you're losing me throughout, right? You have these moments that you set up, and when you don't grab me with that moment to then set me up for a later moment, by the time I get to that later moment, I don't give a fuck anymore. And this film did that consistently throughout the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, we're done.
I don't have anything else to say. To be honest. But I mean, yeah, I think you should check it out if you like very subtle horror movies and vampires. That's about it.
Vampires, no.
Okay, fine. Just subtle horror movies.
No, that's
you like dramas.
That's not really a part of this movie. It is, but it isn't. Yeah. If you like really slow, dramatic horror where nothing really hits any climaxes. And there's people who love that shit. There really are. I know a few friends that are all about that kind of stuff. And I know people who do love this movie. And that's great. We ain't one of them. We're two of them. 8 of them. I don't know. Whatever. Bye.